I am alive here, December 24th, the night before Christmas, and I have a good amount of wrestling news for you today. The taped Raw aired last night. If anyone saw it, let me know how it was reading the results of it last week. It didn't seem all that interesting. And for anyone wondering why this week's Raw was a taped Raw, it's because the initial event reportedly had less than 1,000 tickets sold. So they ended up canceling the Raw event that was scheduled for yesterday night and making last week's taping a double taping. Hello to Ralph Vaquero, Colonel Quayle, and Gio Penn. NXT was taped after Smackdown last Friday night, the NXT that's going to air on Christmas. So it will actually be in a big building for once, not Full Sail University. As far as SmackDown goes, Fox wanted a 1 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic, and WWE hasn't even been getting half of that. They've been getting under 0.5 rating most weeks. They were also expecting over 3 million viewers, and they've been getting around 2.4 million viewers per episode. So they've been underperforming so far. This was a huge contract. Fox is reportedly paying them somewhere around 300 million or possibly more for this WWE content. So they're not meeting expectations so far. Anthony Shabbat, how are you? I'm great. Ralph Vaquero, Merry Christmas. Blake Luckerson, what's up? What's up from Lobo and Mally? Glad I made it to the live. Dana Brooks signed a new 5-year deal with WWE. There will not be another live NXT until January 8th, 2020. Therefore, next week, it will be another taped NXT, which they're probably going to tape this Friday after SmackDown against a live AEW. Now, when I did my What Wrestling Observer review, the words that Dave Meltzer used to describe last week's episode of AEW, which featured this Dark Order crap, basically, he said that he feels that that episode could have been the tipping point for AEW as far as tipping downward. So we'll see if that happens. I'm sure this video of Tony Khan delivering a stunner to Shawn Spears and then the female referee beating up Christopher Daniels, one of their tag team champions. That's pretty stupid. And there's been I actually interviewed Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret on Skype, and he was defending comedy wrestling. And somebody tweeted this video of French wrestlers, I guess, from the early 70s, around 1972, taking like a special springboard to go into the ring. These were French gymnast wrestlers. The Dutch Mantel actually tweeted about them and said they didn't last very long. So people that keep tweeting this black and white video of French wrestlers actually using a springboard to go into the ring as if that's defending comedy wrestling. Well, we never heard about that until now. So it's not like that was popular. I mean, was wrestling ever really that huge in France? I don't know. It's possible, but whether it was or not, that springboard thing obviously didn't get that over. The comedy aspect or the unbelievable aspect of using a springboard in a professional wrestling match obviously didn't become a massive thing, because the first I heard of it was today with these people tweeting the videos about it. Too much comedy in wrestling these days, someone's saying on here. Roberto Bravo says the French didn't last long in World War II either. That's funny in a way. By the way, the Young Bucks have publicly stated they're, I guess, getting off Twitter. I can only assume This is due to all the heat they're getting as executives in AEW. Sorry, calling it WCW because the booking. You'd have to say that the booking is worse than in WCW because WCW was getting much better ratings than AEW is getting. So you can't say that the booking is better than WCW's. They were doing better in ratings. But basically, Jim Ross has said in the past it's never good to have active wrestlers as executives in the company, as we're seeing a lot of signs of that with AEW. For one thing, it's the executives hiring all their buddies. Hence the Dark Order guy that was missing Dustin Rhodes by like a foot with punches in a video that's all over the internet. I'm not that familiar with Mexican wrestling, and I didn't even get that much more familiar with my interview with Juventud Guerrera about Mexican wrestling, because as you people have seen, somebody commented on one of the clips, it was like pulling teeth talking to this guy. Yes, it was. He is my least favorite interview I ever did. I paid him for an hour. At the half an hour point, he started actually physically tapping his foot. He needed alcohol to do the interview. He wanted some other stuff too that's legal in Canada as well, which I provided for him. And I don't feel he did a very good interview overall. But I'm making the most of it. But Krilling876. Oh, I do have an answer for you, by the way. You're tipping me $2 about Alex Riley. I think you asked me about Alex Riley the other day. He is going to be at an event I'm covering in March. So I will probably talk to him in March, although I don't think I'll be interviewing him in a full interview at that point. Krilling876 says, and WCW had packed houses and was competing against WWE. I mean, yeah, WCW had big crowds, and even in their dying days, their crowds weren't that terrible. I mean, I'd have to review it to see how their crowds were in their dying days compared to now, but I know ratings were better even in WCW's last day. And if you look at the Panama City last Nitro ever, they actually did have a good crowd for that. So, and we have seen in AEW, if you watch the fan cam of Tony Khan delivering the stunner to Sean Spears, you can see that whole side is empty. And I've seen other videos. There's lots of seats being blocked off on AEW shows as well. Jay Smith says, nice Hillbilly Jim clips. Well, as I said, he was a pleasure to interview. The total opposite of Juventud Guerrera. Hillbilly Jim is a great guy. But as I was getting into the Mexican news, Mr. Nia Blood, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, who is a major star in CMLL, passed away at 46 due to a blood infection. I haven't heard exactly what this blood infection is. I don't know if they do blood testing there, but I do know they have double blood matches from time to time in Mexico. And I would hope he did not pick up this blood infection from wrestling. Apparently, he was a former CMLL World Heavyweight Champion, Tag Team Champion, and Trios Champion. And I posted a video on here of Fisto, who is a huge women's star. She's coming to Great North Wrestling February 29th to challenge Jessica Black for the Women's Championship of Canada. The Faces of Fear, Haku and Barbarian, will face Too Cold Scorpio and the Blood Hunter on that same card. Visit thehannibaltv.com for more information. We are going to attempt to live stream that on my personal Devon Nicholson YouTube channel. So search that up and subscribe to that channel. We are going to do the live stream test there and see how it does. Gio Penn says Fisto is great. Loved her stuff in CZW. Glad to see Lufisto's health is good. Another person says. Blake Nicholson says, so is NXT worth watching? I don't know. You guys answer me on there. Have I ever interviewed Jody Hamilton Lambert, 1702? No, but I actually used to know him for the brief period of time I was in Deep South Wrestling. And I always got along with Jody Hamilton. I'm sure he has some interesting stories to tell about that whole WWE Deep South Wrestling debacle that didn't turn out too well. Sammy Boy says, is Glow still around? They recorded their last season. I don't know if the last season had aired yet. I did watch pretty much every episode of their first season, and then the show seemed to get worse as the seasons went along. I think I only made it through one episode of the most recent season of Glow. Supposedly AEW might be doing some stuff with Glow. Of course, I've interviewed a lot of the original Glow girls. I was a fan of that show when I was very young. And Hollywood is by far my favorite. But they're all really nice. I like them all. I would have liked to have gone on the Glow cruise, actually, that took place this year. Why don't they talk about Nyla Rose being transgender and having her actually go against men? Tag Team Friendship Production says. I stay out of that. I mean, I feel that because transgenders are more muscular, having them wrestle smaller girls isn't really fair. I mean, if I've never really seen much of Nyla Rose, the one match of her I saw, I didn't think she was necessarily a bad wrestler, but like I am a big guy, 265. If I were to wrestle a regular size female wrestler, like let's say 130 pounds, it would be dangerous. I would hurt them. So from that standpoint, I don't think transgenders should wrestle females. You're correct. They should probably wrestle men or larger females. Like Lufisto is really tough and she wrestles men. I'm sure she could handle a transgender, but like, should they really have the women's title? Because it's not fair to like a woman born in a woman's body to have to fight someone with pretty much a man's strength. That could be dangerous. Classic nerdy Naglastis is how long do I think Impact will be on Access TV? Well, the only reason they're on Access TV is the parent company of Impact, Anthem, bought Access TV. They were not picked up by that channel. They weren't on anything but Twitch, where they were getting less than 3,000 viewers an episode. Then they were put on Access because their company bought the channel. Their company owns the Fight Network in Canada. They have money from that. They have not released any ratings or viewership from Access, so we can only assume that means that it's not good, just like Combate Americas did not release the buy rate for the Tito Ortiz Alberto El Patron pay-per-view in the US because they said they admitted numbers were weak. When numbers are weak, you don't want to like put them out there. Biggs21 says, I like Nia Ferrari. I don't know. Haven't seen that one. Richard Min, Tina rather. Frank Zavla, what is my opinion of MLW and would I ever work for them? Under the right circumstances, yes, I would work for them. As I talked to Brian Zane, an ideal situation for me would to be in a company like MLW or ROH where I could get like a wrestling paycheck and do YouTube, cover those promotions when I go to participate on the shows, get interviews, promote them on my channel, promote my matches on the channel, but also have a paycheck from that. That way I wouldn't have to work my normal job and I could build this at the same time and there could be cross promotion. But for whatever reason, I don't know if they're companies like Ring of Honor. I mean, I've already beat PCO numerous times. He's their champion. I don't know who the MLW champion is, but maybe they're afraid I can. Oh, no, it's Jacob. I actually like Jacob Fatu, actually, who is their champion. And his manager, the new Sheik, who I'll be seeing both of those men in LA. They're going to be on the big PCW Ultra card January 10th. PCWUltra.com has more information on that. I'll be interviewing Chris Masters there, Sabu, many stars are going to be there. The Blood Hunter, Kevin Sullivan will be managing the Blood Hunter on that card. So MLW, I have a lot of friends in MLW. Alicia Tout just signed a contract with him, by the way. Another friend of mine. Richard Min, what happened with the production of Impact? Surely they can get a larger crowd. They actually had to pay people when they came to Ottawa a few years ago, Impact Wrestling. It was all over the news. I'm not making this up. You can search it up. They actually were offering people $60 to attend a TV taping. I remember the company they were using was called Smythe Casting. They can't draw flies right now. And it's very hard to draw for wrestling these days. It's not a boom period for sure. Mayonnaise, Matilla, are you a Billy Jack bro now? No. You know what? We're business. Like I'll work with pretty much anyone in business. And he had a very successful shoot interview. It's now posted for free. You can look that up. He is going to be at the Hannibal TV table at WrestleCon in Tampa, Florida, along with Rip Oliver this coming April. So if you're going to WrestleCon, stop by the Hannibal TV table. And there will be a part 2 Billy Jack Haynes shoot interview done that weekend. Jay Smith, have I done an interview with Tito Santana? Just a short one. Actually, recently, last month. Look it up here on the Hannibal TV. Man, there's a lot of questions on here. Geo Penn says Fatu's great. I like how they are pushing BP Jr. now after Teddy left. British Bulldog Jr., you mean. That's good. I haven't been following MLW that much, other than what they put in the Wrestling Observer, to be honest. Ricky Pax, have you heard of Notorious Chris Doyle? No, I have not. Love the Butch Reed interview. Someone says it's amazing that Bill Impact is still going. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, for sure. The worst wrestling company out there. Second worst TNA. Not TNA, NWA, sorry. Do I remember when Professor Shaky Mike battled Ric Flair for the WWF title in 98? That must be a joke, because Flair was not in the WWE in 98. Keep being awesome and doing some great interviews, Lance Butler says. Thank you. I'm going to be continuing that in 2020. Who did more harm to wrestling careers, steroids or Vince trying comedy gimmicks? Vince trying comedy gimmicks. And comedy wrestling in general, definitely. And for everyone that's like, I'm no steroid advocate, okay? Don Fry is someone that like has clearly suffered the effects of doing steroids. He was very open about that to me. But if you look at steroids, like Billy Graham was one of the worst abusers in history. And right now he's only 5 years younger than Bruno Sammartino was when Bruno died. So are they that bad for you? Billy Graham is still alive. Lobo Zozo, do I have any interviews lined up for 2020? My first two will be Sabu and Kevin Sullivan, part 3. There will be lots of great ones in 2020. I'm going to work on getting a very extended Terry Funk one, among others. Big John, what would Impact ratings be? Do you know they do not release their ratings? The last numbers that were released were their Twitch numbers, and at one point they were averaging like 2,400 for an episode on Twitch, mostly under 3,000. They are not releasing any access ratings or any pay-per-view buy rates. Necron99 says Billy Jack Haynes is the man. He was a god here in Portland. Well, part 2's coming in 2020. Fred Blassie 321, can I get RVD for an interview? I think there's 2 or 3 interviews with RVD on here. Now, search it up, RVD, the Hannibal TV. Full shoot, maybe one day. Part 2, David Schultz would be cool, maybe. I don't know. Rob B, cheers to that, J. Lambert 702, have you and Terry Funk made up? I have not seen him in 10 years, but I am sure that I could convince him to do a shoot interview with me, because he did try to get me a wrestling job in Japan at one point since our altercation and matches. But have I forgiven him for costing me that match against Kevin Nash due to his poor refereeing? No. Geo Pan, I think Naito speaks English, but he kayfabes it. Mike Rotunda interview. Someone's saying, well, I doubt that's going to happen. He doesn't seem like he'd be a good interview, for one thing. Richard Mins, more Rene Dupree on here. We're always going to have Rene Dupree on here. He's a friend of mine, so expect more. Krillin876 with a $2 tip. Thank you. It seems like indies don't try to help each other. No, they don't. You are correct there. The indies are very competitive, for one thing, and I can never really see them helping each other, really, honestly. Great North Wrestling and CWE Canada recently collaborated a little bit. We let them use some of our talent on a recent event. However, from my understanding, I don't think there's going to be further working together anytime soon. I will never understand how TMA Impact Wrestling went from having a big following to where they are now. Classic nerdy Naglastia says, horrible booking is one thing. Josh Morgan, when you come to Rhode Island, interview Tim White. Well, hopefully I'll be back in Rhode Island next year. Media Palace, Brian Blair 2 would be good. Lots of interesting stories there. Yes, Brian Blair 2 will happen for sure. Jay Smith, Mountie would be awesome. Well, there is a Mountie shoot interview on here. It was my 3rd shoot interview I ever did. Search it up. I want him to do another one. He said he would, but he's on an extended vacation right now. Quebecer Pierre PCO, current Ring of Honor champion, also says he's going to do a part 2 very soon. Someone says it seems MLW and AEW have a thing going on, but honestly, they should focus on their partnership with Noah and AAA. I don't think there's a partnership with MLW and AEW other than probably AEW and MLW probably have some sort of financial deal going on when AEW uses guys and commentators that are under MLW contract right now. Those people likely won't re-sign with MLW. They'll likely re-sign fully with AEW because AEW pays a lot more from what I understand. Lambert 1702. Last question. Greatest heel from the territory days. I like Ernie Ladd. I would say the Sheik. Without question, from my end, I would say the Sheik. Blake Luckerson says, I never really see advertising for local wrestling. What happens to all the advertising? I can tell you what it is. It's very expensive advertising. Very, very expensive. And the money just is not there, unfortunately, for indie wrestling. You don't make much money. The costs are huge to put on indie wrestling shows as a promoter. So that's why you don't see a lot of advertising. For our Great North Wrestling events, we do advertise. I do spend money on advertising. But I can tell you that it's a passion, a work of passion for me. I hear a lot of indie wrestlers complain about their pay all the time. Trust me, you should just be happy you have a place to work, because I don't know any indie wrestling promoter that's a multi-millionaire. They're doing it on the side to stay in the business and to do what they love, and they're giving independent wrestlers work. So, it's tough. It's tough. And as I've said, wrestling is low now in the major, like on TV. When TV wrestling is low, it's harder to sell tickets for indie shows. Because as I said, I have to, when I'm going around for Great North Wrestling, for example, I do the postering myself. I don't trust people to do postering for me. And when I go like to shops and ask the owners if I can put posters up, oftentimes those owners are telling me they don't like the wrestling that's on TV now. And I have to convince them that our wrestling is different. I'm only going to answer a few more because there's lots of questions. Thanks for the Billy Jack Haynes shoot interview. It was amazing. Adam Davis. Appreciate it. Richard Mins, New Japan has some great wrestling. They probably have the best wrestling product out there, the most realistic, I would say, out there. Jason Richard, are you interviewing Ken Patera? I would like to one day. Rob B, if Manny Fernandez wasn't such a liar, it would be good. Don't know much about Manny. I have interviewed him, though. All right. Have a good night, everybody. My dog is really shutting me down here. Appreciate everything. Paul, Gigi, and Crush Claire asking for a shout out. So that's my last thing for tonight. Good night, everybody.